I'm back on the porch. It's nice out here. It's not raining today too, so bonus. Hi, I'm Magrann. I'm a queer non-binary cyborg game designer living in Columbus, Ohio. But why do I call myself a cyborg? People ask me this all the time. I don't usually use cyborg as a pronoun, right? So like, what's that about? What's up with that, Kira? Why are you a cyborg? Do you have cyborg parts? I've been having some trans non-binary thoughts this week, so I guess that's what this video is about. Also, if you have a second, please like and subscribe down below. Check out my Patreon where you can stay up to date with these video releases. Give me $1 or $2 to support my videos / game making, and get some game PDFs when I release them. See some of my designs and stuff behind my thinking and game design. Thinking behind my game design? Words. I watched ContraPoint's newest video this week. This isn't like a reaction video to that. But in it, so ContraPoints is awesome. I love her. She's going through a public transition on YouTube, which must be so strange. And you can tell she's kind of wrestling with a lot of like new gender thoughts. And one of the things that she talks about is non-binary. If you don't already watch ContraPoints, go watch it immediately. I will attach a link somewhere so that you can go watch her videos. They're amazing. But you know, I think one of the things she talks about, and that a lot of binary trans people talk about, is kind of how you know, like, where does non-binary fit in? It's kind of like this blanket umbrella term that doesn't, you know, is still being defined largely in the public by culture, but has been defined privately and in various communities for a long time. And so I think because of that, there's like confusion about what it is. And like in ContraPoint's video, she talks about, you know, non-binary people wanting kind of something more of a gender revolution, like a radical change and shift in the way that we see gender. And I would argue as a non-binary person that really I just want culture to return to an understanding of gender that it's had previously, or that other cultures have that American culture doesn't embrace. Lots of indigenous cultures have embraced non-binary identities for a long time, for example. And so I think it's more like that for me. Like for non-binary, I think that people think it's like in the middle somewhere. like you're not you know, a man and you're not a woman, you're like somewhere, you're foot, you're like somewhere in the middle. And I think that a lot of non-binary people try to present that way too, like you know, a little bit of masculine, a little bit of feminine, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that the way that we present our gender to the world is often the way that we get identified by the world, and gender is performative in lots of ways, as you know, as we live and exist in culture, and as culture is to understand us as a certain gender and accept us as a certain gender and use the pronouns we'd like them to use, right? My coffee is on point this morning, by the way. That's why I'm so hyper. Oh, I just shook the table. So yeah, so like as a non-binary person, I have never really felt comfortable with any kind of gender presentation. I don't really like masculine identities, although I do like some masculine things, right, in our culture. And I do like some feminine things in our culture, and I do lean more towards accepting feminine things as comfortable for myself, not because it's like culturally comfortable, but because I think of the patriarchy and my discomfort with a lot of the roles that masculinity in general plays with oppression of other genders. I mean, like when I was younger, I distinctly remember being uncomfortable when I got dresses as presents. Like I didn't want to wear dresses. But it's confusing when you grow up assigned female at birth because you don't know if you're uncomfortable with the idea of the feminine presentation. You know, if you just don't want to be too girly, or if you just don't like dresses as a woman, or if you've been programmed, like we all have, to hate women and feminine things, and you just haven't realized that yet because you haven't learned to deprogram that from your system. It's very confusing. And yeah, I guess that's a sidetrack. I guess in a sense I do kind of want a gender revolution. Like, one of the huge reasons I identify as non-binary is because I reject notions of cultural gender. Like, I don't think that the options presented to me, feminine, masculine, somewhere in the middle, are things that I like, or that I feel comfortable in, or that I identify with very strongly in one way or another. You know, I think that when I learned through feminism that gender fluidity was a possibility, and through like lots of subcultures I was a part of, like goth subcultures when I was a teenager, really embraced kind of a gender fuckery in style and fashion. That's what I still adhere to, a lot of that actually. I love hard femme fashion. And, you know, queer communities and kink communities where you're able to kind of literally play with those concepts of gender in an accepted space, and people would kind of accept your playfulness with that, or whatever you chose to identify as, no matter how weird it is. Weird, like culturally weird, not weird necessarily for you or the people around you. But the problem remains the culture at large around us. Like, I can find these pocket cultures where I can fit in, and you know, queer culture has come a long way. I think non-binary culture is really interesting today, where lots of kids I see doing this, younger people, asking pronouns as soon as you meet someone, and that's so progressive. You're not assuming someone's pronoun. Don't associate that, assuming my gender. It's like you're not guessing what someone's gender might be based on how they look, but you're asking them based on what they would like to be recognized as. And sometimes that's an internal feeling, and sometimes that's a presentation, and sometimes that's a fashion, how you dress or how you act or gesture or how you talk, or it can be none of those things. So I think that's really cool. But I also don't like pronouns. There's not a pronoun. I don't like they. They is becoming more accepted as a non-binary pronoun, and I think that's kind of cool for someone to kind of radically use it as a pronoun, or any other pronoun that isn't he or she. But I don't like the sound of it. I don't think it feels like what I don't feel like many people. I feel like one person. So that's weird, I guess. I know it's a singular pronoun, but it also, I don't know, it just feels weird. So I still feel like I don't have a pronoun I like. Blah. And I also think that gender, the things that we associate with gender are very much like cultural brainwashing. Like, even though I am far removed from a lot of that cultural brainwashing, I've tried to unbrainwash myself more or less to create my own concepts of gender and take what I have learned from other people and their concepts of gender, right, and apply it to what I like. And like, for example, sex talk for a second. You know, recently I was masturbating, as you do, and I accidentally ejaculated. Like, I've never done that before accidentally, actually. It's only happened to me purposefully when someone else was doing it to me. And it felt it made me feel like a boy, right? I was embarrassed. There was this huge mess I had to clean up. It was like this cultural signal that I had just done something kind of boyish. And it made me feel good. That was a good feeling. It was weird and hilarious, because sex is weird and hilarious. And, you know, then this week I got my period and accidentally bled all over a pair of underwear I was sleeping in. But that didn't that wasn't a good embarrassed feel. That was a bad embarrassed feel, like I'd made some horrible mistake and I was a mess and bleeding everywhere, you know, because that's a feminine association, which is more negative in our culture. So weird, you know, body feels, that, you know, it's just cultural brainwashing. Like there's no reason I have to have those association with those things, but like I do subconsciously have them, and then have to like tell my subconscious, no, you don't have to feel that way. But if it feels good, I kind of want to feel that way anyway. It's very confusing. I used to talk about sex professionally a lot, actually. I worked at a kink shop after college in my early 20s in Philadelphia, and ran a lot of events with them for, you know, charity, for LGBTQ, you know, organizations and stuff like that. And, you know, I think talking about sex is a normal thing, and shouldn't be adults. I don't know, that like anyone should just be able to talk about their funny sex body things. But anyway, that's my embarrassing sex story. I hope it's not too sexy for this channel. I don't know how sex stories work on YouTube. But yeah, so I don't know. And that's just like a body cultural reaction. Like, you know, we can do lots of things with our bodies that aren't culturally programmed. You know, an awesome example of this, if you've never heard of things like this, is How to Fuck Trans Women, I think is what it's called. It's a zine that kind of teaches you trans ideas of sex are not attached to genitals, and that genitals are not attached to gender. So that's a cool thing that you could check out and learn from. So yeah, I don't know, gender, bodies, language, it's always confused me. I've always thought a whole lot about it, and it's always made me really happy to experiment with. So that's why I'm non-binary. I'm all over the place, and I like it that way. So why the cyborg situation? Well, I read Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto. You've probably heard the story a billion times. This is what converted me to the idea of cyborg as a gender. And basically in that manifesto, she posits all of the intersections of gender, you know, for women in particular. It's kind of like a feminist manifesto from the 90s, so it's a little bit old now, but still progressive as far as a lot of academia on gender. It's more recent, right, than stuff in the 70s, which is a lot of stuff we're still looking at for feminism. But she talks about like the cyborg as this like rejection of the natural, of like, you know, nature isn't super great. You know, the goddess myth that we're looking at is like the ideal woman is kind of ridiculous. Women aren't ideal. And gender is complicated and made of lots of moving parts. And here's all the moving parts. And cyborgs are, we think of them as monsters right now. You know, like in Terminator, she's using as the example. But like, how is gender monstrous, and how has it been taught to us as being this kind of monstrous thing as women? And what are all those moving complex intersections? You know, like sex and gender and culture and capitalism and like all these things that influence our concepts of gender. And I really, really liked it. And it's too complicated for me to really explain tightly at any one point. Other than I feel like the rejection of some kind of idyllic gender really speaks to me. I don't think that my gender is sacred, you know. It's not binary either. It's not this or that. It just is. It's all of these things. And it's interesting that I like that complexity of the idea of the cyborg, but I also don't think that I'm many people. I don't know, I just think human brains are complicated, and that's where our concepts of gender come from. So the idea of a cyborg made sense to me. So hey, I'm non-binary. There's a lot of us in the world. If you're non-binary, hey, solidarity. Let me know your non-binary thoughts down in the comments below, and any ridiculous sex stories you'd like to share with me. I love hearing them. And yeah, this has been a gender video. I'll see you in my next video.